You've come crawling back. I love it. You want to know about how to beat the new Yu-Gi-Oh meta decks, but Squamata's not necessarily interested in what you want. We're more interested in what do you have for us. I tell you what, you've been good to Cali and Benny and Top Deck TJ. I'll cut you another deal. I'll let Cali give you the information on how to beat these decks, but you gotta like and subscribe. You also gotta post down below in the comment section what deck are you gonna be playing this format. Cali might need that for another video coming up. Keep in mind, this is not a request, this is a demand. Because if you don't, you're gonna really find out how Squamata do. What's going on with ya, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Now, Cali the Don has graciously given me the go-ahead to give you guys the information, and in return, you're going to like, subscribe, and comment the deck that you're playing this format. It was the only deal that I could cut for you guys in order to get you the information on where to use your powerful hand traps on these particular decks, and of course, the cards that you can be using to beat these Yu-Gi-Oh strategies. So as per usual with my meta counter guide, we're going to be dividing this video into 3 different sections: how to beat Maliss, how to beat Ryzeal, and how to beat Ryu-Ge. And if you guys have a particular card or thing that you've been doing to beat these particular decks, go ahead and let us know down below in the comment section as well. It can genuinely help somebody that may be struggling against these strategies. Let's start off with the tier 1 Yu-Gi-Oh deck, Ryzeal. Now, Ryzeal is an Exceed-based Yu-Gi-Oh deck that locks itself into only being able to summon Exceed monsters that are rank 4. You don't have to worry about powerful monsters like Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, but you do have to worry about its strongest monster, Ryzeal Detonator. This card allows them to destroy a card on the field every single time you activate a card effect. You combine that with their powerful spell cards, Ryzeal Cross, allowing you to be able to negate a monster effect, and Ryzeal Plasma Hole, which destroys even more cards depending on the Exceed monsters that they have on the field. This can be a really dangerous deck. So how do we beat it? Ryzeal has a few natural weaknesses that we'll exploit. One of them being, if you're playing hand traps, to consider cards like Droll and Lockbird. Ryzeal has a really small engine and oftentimes needs a few searches to get themselves going. Mochummy Perilia is also really good against Ryzeal because this deck special summons from the hand a lot. Those are some of the best hand traps to work against this deck, but what about the generic hand traps that we're going to be playing inside of our deck? Before I jump into that, there's one thing that I want to say about Ryzeal that a lot of players get wrong. Oftentimes, players will use hand traps on the monsters Ice, Sword, and X Ryzeal, hoping that they'll be able to stop them from going further. I think that this is a terrible idea. And the main reason why I think it's bad is because oftentimes Ryzeal players have extenders, ways to summon other monsters to their side of the field to continue on into their Exceed summon. A lot of times you're wasting your effect veilers or infinite impermanences unless you know definitively that they don't have any other ways to summon other monsters. When using effect veiler, it is best saved for negating Ryzeal Dual Drive. Dual Drive is their strongest card because it turns one of their Ryzeal monsters into a search 2 of any other Ryzeal cards inside of their deck. The main power from Ryzeal comes from being able to get access to those cards, so negating Ryzeal Dual Drive with effect veiler is normally a must. Now with Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, this isn't a terrible target, but you have to keep in mind, if your opponent can summon 2 more level 4s, they can then summon Ryzeal Dual Drive and then activate its effect again. Since Dual Drive isn't an on-summon effect and Ghost Mourner needs to respond to the monster on-summon, it is a risky proposition. But if you know for a fact that your opponent can't make another Exceed summon and is dependent on Dual Drive, go for it. Infinite Impermanence is a little different here too. For this particular deck, I have to categorize the 3 effect negations because Infinite Impermanence could be used on Dual Drive, but oftentimes you probably might want to save it for Ryzeal Detonator. Allowing your opponent to go full combo and then using Imperm to negate Detonator is a wave, because a lot of times the power from this deck does come from Detonator, allowing you to be able to destroy multiple cards at a time. So the game plan normally goes like this. If you draw a combination of hand traps like Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, and Ghost Mourner, throw it at the Dual Drive. But if you draw just Infinite Impermanence, save it for the Detonator on your turn. This should help you simplify the interruptions you can do against this deck. Other choke points against Ryzeal is stopping Ryzeal plugin. Cards like Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion are really good, but if your opponent is targeting a Ryzeal monster in your graveyard, DD Crow for both Ryzeals or a Bystial to be able to stop them from resummoning Ryzeal Detonator is also especially good. And lastly, when it comes to hand traps against Ryzeal, I want to note that if they get Ryzeal Cross on the field in an Exceed, you're cooked. It's not the worst situation in the world if you're playing hand traps like Dominus Impulse or Infinite Impermanence, but keep in mind if you have multiple monster hand traps, your goal should be stopping them from getting Ryzeal Cross to their field because it can negate your monster effects. Just another reason why we hit the duo drive. Players are saying that Nibiru is not good against them. That's not true. Nibiru plus any of the hand traps that I mentioned to stop duo drive means that if they didn't open Ryzeal Cross, you can cook them. And what are some really good tech cards that are great against Ryzeal? Don't worry, I got you. Deck Lockdown is crazy good against Ryzeal. Not only does it prevent them from searching, which is something that is a core function of the deck, it also prevents them from special summoning from the main deck. The combination of those two cards will drive a Ryzeal player crazy. There's also Mischief of the Gnomes, a really sneaky card against them. Mischief of the Gnomes reduces all of their monsters' levels by 1, and Ryzeal locks you into only being able to summon rank 4 monsters. This is one of those sneaky good cards that is a triple tactics thrust target that can also potentially lock them down for 2 turns. We should know that using Dimensional Barrier and calling Exceed is incredibly good against them, but what about some of those off-brand cards that actually apply in other matchups? Well, Destructive Daruma Cannon and Book of Eclipse can flip all of their monsters face down. Destructive Daruma Cannon is really good when you're going first, and Book of Eclipse is actually good when you're going first or second. Because their Exceed monsters are face down, Ryzeal Cross and Plasma do not exist as cards. Lastly, Ryzeal doesn't have any good spell or trap negation. So Ryu-Ge and Evenly Matched are actually incredible Yu-Gi-Oh cards. You just have to watch out because Ryzeal players will be playing Solemn Judgment if you tell them to go first, thinking that these cards are going to be blowouts. And now that we completely cooked Ryzeal, it's time to go on to another deck that is really powerful. Players are on the fence between this strategy. Some are saying it's going to be a tier 1 deck. Others are saying the deck isn't good just yet. But one thing about Maliss is that it's going to be a powerful deck in due time. It actually has the better future support and has the better typing. Let's face it, they made Ryzeal monsters Thunder and Pyro cards for a reason. Maliss are Cybers, which means that all of the old Cyber support plus the new stuff coming out is going to make it crazy. Maliss monsters are also dark and is a really tricky Yu-Gi-Oh deck. This link-based Yu-Gi-Oh deck often locks you into going into specifically Cybers, but there is one tip that I want to share overall about this deck that you need to know. Your hand traps suck against this deck.
Period.
I expect that your experience against Maliss is going to go like this. In the first weeks, players are not going to know how to effectively play the deck. It is incredibly hard.
That's what she said.
But as players start to watch this video or learn from yours truly, they'll start to realize that Maliss is crazy good at making hand traps look bad. You see, the Maliss trap cards can be activated at any given time, banishing a Maliss monster, and the good thing about it is that since they're trap cards, they allow you to be able to dodge targeting effects. A smart Maliss player will always set a face down card before they start their combo, just to make you think that that potential card is a trap card that they can use to be able to stop you from targeting their monster. Now, it's a little bit of a mind game because there's a 34% chance that it is, it's a 66% chance that it isn't. This pretty much means that your Infinite Impermanences and your Effect Veiler should always be used if your opponent starts off with a Maliss monster and does not have a face down card on the field. Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill is a little bit of an exception because it can only stop special summoning monsters, but if your opponent leads off with Maliss P Dormouse, then you should always use the Ghost Mourner on their White Rabbit. If they're starting off with their White Rabbit, then their initial combo has to be able to banish White Rabbit, which means that Ghost Mourner can be saved for your Maliss P Red Ransom. If they do start off with Maliss P White Rabbit, then you can sit back and relax until they summon Splash Mage and use it there. Now, one thing that I really want to emphasize to you guys is that one hand trap against Maliss isn't enough. Even if your opponent does not set that face down card and runs into your hand trap, a Bestial allows them to be able to go full combo anyways. This pretty much means that even if your opponent is bad, they can still get away with some things. If they go about this combo, your second interruption should be on the Splash Mage if it's an effect negation card, and then next would be the first card that they would be able to search through their combos, so Maliss P Red Ransom, but sometimes they go into Queen Binder to be able to get a trap card. Watch out for both of them. Now let's say hypothetically we know that our opponent has that trap card face down, and they're just waiting for us to try to stop one of our Maliss monsters. Well, it becomes a little bit simpler for us. We're using our effect negation on the non-Maliss cards. Splash Mage, easy. Firewall Dragon to resummon, easy. Hell, if they start going into their Cyber's Wicked combo line and they don't have any Maliss monsters on the field, easy. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit should be used on Haggard Lizardos. This is the only time you should interact with that card because Lizardos vanishes for cost, so using an Impermanent or Effect Veiler just mean that you threw the game. Ghost Ogre can also be used on Splash Mage to prevent them from having that extra body. Sometimes that comes up. Dominus Impulse, use this card on Red Ransom's effect to be able to summon itself back. A lot of the deck's playlines revolves off of being able to summon Red Ransom back and banish a card from their deck. This is the prime spot to hit and a lot of times can completely end their turn. And for Ash Blossom, this one's pretty good. There are a few instances that you can use Ash Blossom for. I'd like to say that if your opponent is really desperate for Maliss and Underground, then you can use it on the Red Ransom, but one of the best spots to be able to use this card is to use it on their TB11. Granted, they'll still be able to banish their monsters like Red Ransom or Queen Binder if they just so happen to play it, but you are preventing a critical search or summon from the deck. Ghost Bell, use it on Maliss and Underground if they're trying to build the board, but it is absolutely the best on using it on White Binder's effect to banish cards in the graveyard. You're gonna have to discern the opportunity to use it on either or, and it's really dependent on your hand structure and other hand interruptions that you have. Now, as for the cards that are really good siding against Maliss, Artifact Lancia. Lancia completely shuts down their turn. It essentially gives you a whole turn to be able to prepare. But you can't always rely on Artifact Lancia, so there are some other cards. Destructive Daruma Cannon not only flips their monsters face down, preventing them from link summoning, it also gets rid of all of their link monsters on the field. It's another blowout card against them. If you can play around Cyber's Deceive Worm, board breaker cards are also phenomenal. Forbidden Rocklet, evenly matched, all of them are pretty good, but again, you gotta play around that Cyber's Deceive Worm. Some other cards that can really help, Nibiru the Primal Being, now that Appaloosa is banned, is great against them, and Molchemi Flawless allows you to be able to draw a ton of cards because they summon from the extra deck a lot. I've heard of some players teching in Imperial Iron Wall, and I'm not gonna lie, it might work, especially if your deck is weak to Dimension Shifter, but I don't imagine a particular time where you can set up Imperial Iron Wall under a Dimension Shifter and be okay, because your initial cards will go to the graveyard. But in theory, Imperial Iron Wall does FTK the deck, so you may want to try to experiment with it a little bit. And last is Ryu-Ge, the weaker of the three, and this one's pretty simple. Now, for the people that don't know, Ryu-Ge is often used as a main strategy or an engine inside of other decks. So one thing I have to tell you to watch out for is be careful. Figure out if it is a Ryu-Ge deck pure or if it's Ryu-Ge inside of an engine. The reason why I say this is because if you're playing against some wacky deck like Ryu-Ge branded, you could just lose to a branded fusion. And then other times, you could be completely cooking your opponent. The most important thing that you guys need to know about is that whether it is a pure deck or a hybrid deck, you're going to have to watch out for them summoning Veruges. Veruges can be easily summoned to the side of the field. All they have to do is resolve their field spell. But the good thing about their field spell is that they can't activate it unless they have a Ryu-Ge monster in their graveyard, banished, and in their deck. A lot of people want to stop the effect of Ryu-Ge Warzone's first effect, the one to take one dinosaur, sea serpent, and worm monster and add one to your hand, banish the other, and send it to the graveyard. This is actually not where you want to Ash Blossom. Granted, you're allowing dinosaur decks to get into their combo and worm and sea serpent decks to get into worm and sea serpent cards, but you're not necessarily concerned with that. You're concerned with more of the second effect of this card, the ability to be able to summon those three Ryu-Ge monsters. Now keep in mind they do need the Pendulum monster, so say Ryu-Ge Mitzvah into their extra deck, so you really need to watch out for that. But if you have a card like Ash Blossom or Ghost Ogre, you're using it on that effect. This 100% completely shuts down them making Veruges. And always be sure, know a few things. If you see them playing multiple copies of the Ryu-Ge cards, they're playing more bricks inside of their deck. They'll sometimes use their Ryu-Ge effects to try to get their spell cards, but oftentimes that's a telltale on how many that they're playing. And if you do see them activating a lot of Ryu-Ge cards, it's either a pure build or a really clunky hybrid build. So that should let you know that oftentimes if they're playing 2 of each, that's 6 copies of a card, that's a pretty big chance that they're gonna have one of those bricks in their hand. Other than that, I'm not even gonna hold you, big dog. This deck is okay. It's not something to be really worried about. But that's all that I have for the ultimate meta counter guy, big dog. I hope that this video really did help you. If you guys have any other information that you want to put out, let us know down below in the comment section. And be sure to check out these other videos so I can catch you on the next one.